invested privately, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Privately.
Cool. So then you got the message from him, and then you got in contact with Lovable and Strawberry, and
That's right. We reached out to these partners to set up a fantastic hackathon to really draw on, great models, great agents, and of course, high quality data from Redpine.
Right. So how was the setup? Could they actually get like free access then to your APIs, and then they could build the agent on Lovable, or how?
Yeah, so we integrated at that hackathon with Lovable on the back end through MCP, so that the hacking teams could integrate and access proprietary data from our data partners to be able to build even better, even stronger agents to solve real tasks. It was amazing to see the creativity in just 5 hours. So many solutions came out.
And what type of companies joined the hackathon, or people?
People, individuals, early teams that were looking to build startups joined to try out test solutions that they had in mind. And so much creativity and action and great solutions came out of that one-day hackathon.
No, when was this?
It was end of last year, towards the end of November.
So it's not that long ago?
No, just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, and because it's almost important to ask that question because everything moves so fast.
That's right. So it feels like ages ago, but actually very recently.
Yeah.
How did they build the agent? Did they use their own like code editors, or did they actually use Lovable to build the agent themselves?
Yeah, I think most of the teams used Lovable, some mix of OpenAI as well, a Strawberry browser as well. So there were a lot of agentic systems involved in that mix, integrated with Redpine data.
And tell us, what were the highlights? What did they actually build?
Yeah, I think there were so many great solutions coming out of that. Again, in just a day, there were things like sentiment analytics. We partnered with a company called All Ears, a Swedish company, actually, in the audio data space. Fantastic. And they had lots of great data that we managed to get into Redpine's API and into the agent. So one of the winning teams built a sentiment analysis for stock picking, stock purchasing, and stock evaluation using real-time alternative data, and that was pretty good. Another one built a reputational check for companies and brands and CEOs.
So the ideas are endless.
Endless.
That's the point.
Fantasy is the only limitation factor. Again, human creativity.
And I just did a sneak peek at Tech Arena today.
Right.
And as we are saying, there's never been a better time to start a company. The idea is the limit, right?
Yes, fully agree. All
right, amazing.
How is Tech Arena?
Tech Arena, we can segue a little bit about that, because for me, Tech Arena is very much, to me, a view for, as a meeting ground. I think one of the most important dimensions is the startups having a chance to matchmake with investors. And at that scale, I don't think it's that many, and so we get a lot of views on that, and then we have some interesting discussions and panels. But here I'm a little bit jaded, because here it becomes always super high fly, and more panels and generalist discussions,
right?
Where I want more meat, but I think it serves a really, really distinct purpose. But I was going to ask you, what do you think about, what types of conferences and events do we need as startups? Is Tech Arena a good model, or do you want it smaller or bigger? Or?
I think Tech Arena is great. I'm glad that someone has taken that relay stick in Stockholm and Sweden to do something. We have a fantastic ecosystem, of course, as we know, and we should have a great event as well. I think Tech Arena is doing a fantastic job. Then I love Slush. I've been there, I think, for 6 years.
Yeah, how do you contrast? Have you been to Tech Arena last year, maybe?
Yeah, I've been there.
So please contrast those two.
Of course, the size. Slush much bigger, spread out.
Perhaps not everyone knows what Slush is, so if you could just
Slush is a Finnish conference. Yes. I think they've been around for probably 10 plus years, and it's the biggest tech conference in Scandinavia, at least, maybe Northern Europe.
But if you look at the purpose or the mission, would you say they are the same tech arena and Slush, or would you say Slush has another identity or another slightly different purpose?
I think the purpose is probably the same: bring together the ecosystem, have people fly in during a very concentrated period of time for a lot of meetings, and create serendipity on site, face to face. So I think that purpose is similar. Then how it's set up, the atmosphere is very different as well.
Who is going to Slush versus who is going to Tech Arena? Is that I'm thinking it's even a little bit more. Slush has groomed their sort of customers or clientele or the community.
Yeah, no, I think Slush
is something special.
I was an investor for many years, VC, and I think VCs tend to go to Slush. Also, of course, some startups to create those meetings, and LPs. I think those and large enterprises within tech. So those are the kind of main groups of attendance to Slush. Tech Arena, I think, is also, at least when I've been there, it's also a mix, of course. Startups, you get investors. You also have, I think the speaker list is a bit more alternative and exotic. People like this year, I heard Boris Johnson, and we had Zlatan and so forth. Not the traditional tech speakers, perhaps. So maybe that's a different flavor too.
Yeah, and you can either like that or not like that, because it becomes more generalist. It becomes more curious to go to Tech Arena, and so you get I think a more mixed crowd is my feeling.
Yeah, and I think also they're bringing in the public ecosystem in the sense, agencies and sort of state-backed organizations as well, more so than I see Slush do. But I like the events. I think is a great way to meet people randomly and by chance and so forth, and also plan. I went to the Italian tech event called Tech Week Italy in Torino last year. That was the best event I've been to for 5 years or so.
And why was that good? Why did you like that?
I mean, not only the weather helped, aperitivo as opposed to November slush weather. No, but I think it was the size. It was much smaller, more intimate. Was a wide mix of people and coming to Italy, also from the US. They've been instrumental bringing people like Jeff Bezos coming in and Sam Altman the year before. So really the top speakers and very intimate, very accessible.
So it is, maybe you take it. I'm just so curious on these topics.
Yeah.
I mean, I think one key question I always think about is like, what's the optimum size?
Yeah.
Because to some degree, when you go into Friends Arena, you get one experience. And if you go to a little bit smaller event, it's slightly different, right? But then it can be almost too small, or then it's a completely different ball game,
Right.
So how big was the one in Italy, and how do you think about size of these events?
It was much smaller, much more intimate. It was fit into one smaller arena. Here in Stockholm, it's the Friends Arena. What's the new name? Strawberry Arena?
Yeah, Strawberry Arena.
So much bigger, of course. So I think the one in Italy, maybe 3-4 times smaller than Tech Arena in terms of the venue size and participation, probably the same. So I think that's good. That created, a much closer proximity between guests and easier to access people who were there.
Cool stuff. But with that, we love to welcome you here.
Thank you, Anders.
Anders Hammarbäck. The founder of and CEO of RedPine.
Yes.
And we're going to dig much deeper into that and hear more about, what that is and what you're up to these days. I know a lot of stuff is happening there, so really looking forward to that. But you also have an extensive background in the VC arena, as we just heard. So perhaps we'll dig a bit deeper into that as well.
Happy to.
But perhaps we can start a bit with, if you were to just give a brief introduction to yourself, who is really Anders Hammarbäck? Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. So professionally, right now, together with the team at RedPine, building the knowledge layer for AI agents. That's our mission, to make agents smarter, more intelligent, and more capable to solve tasks, meaningful tasks. Yeah. That's RedPine. Let's get into that in a while.
Yes.
And prior to that, I worked in many companies. I love scaling teams, businesses, and companies on a global level. So I had the fortune and privilege to really work many places around the world and do so. So I started building my own company when I was 19, studying at high school. IT-gymnasiet is called, IT high school, out in Kista in the first .com era that we all remember, good old days. That was great, everything's possible. And we built a team called Mimersbrunn that became an edtech company here in Sweden. And it's been alive for 20 years, I think, up till last year actually. Sold twice since. So that was a good first foray into entrepreneurship. Everything was possible, and then that led me into more of a business school. Actually, I went to Handelshögskolan, Stockholm School of Economics in Stockholm, and also exciting times. Got to work in banks in London, and got to work in telecom in Nigeria during the summer, which was very exciting. Yeah, and
why Nigeria?
Yeah, Lagos. I was building mobile strategy for a telecom operator in 2005 in Lagos, Nigeria. An internship, super exciting, and got to really launch data services. At that time, so it was early days in the kind of mobile
the mobile data space.
Yeah, exactly. So we got to look at the Nordics, what had been launched, what will be launched there, price points, analyze the market of such a booming market like Lagos. So fantastic opportunity. And then I went to Asia for an exchange program, and I stayed for about 8 years in total, all together in 2 different periods.
Where?
Mainly China.
Mainly China.
So
which
Beijing first,
Beijing?
Tsinghua University, which is now famous for a lot of tech and AI superstars coming out of that school.
Right.
So I went there in 2005 as well.
To study or to?
Yeah, to study MBA exchange from Stockholm here. And decided to learn Mandarin. So I'm a fan of difficult things. I like challenges and deep parts of the pool.
You speak and write Mandarin? Or?
I speak. I can write on a phone and on a keyboard. But I can write a few characters by hand. But my wife is fluent. She's Italian on that part as well, as a sinologist. But I can only speak and listen. But that's been exciting as a journey. So, and then I worked in McKinsey for a couple of years as a consultant, management consultant, doing all kinds of projects, always data-driven, of course, analytical projects, getting large amounts of data, analyzing that, and drawing conclusions together with the team. And
how many years at McKinsey?
3 years. So I came in 3 years as the first job after school, after graduation. And again, data was, I think, the common bloodline through that period.
Were you overlapping with Martin Lundqvist at that time? Because he's a good friend of ours.
Good.
Course.
He's also
been on the pod.
Angel investor in my company.
I don't know Martin. Yes. Shout out to Martin.
I will, for sure. Very good. Also, Göran Sandahl, who was a guest here a few weeks back.
Yeah, that's right.
Angel. So McKinsey, and then worked in EF Education for a couple of years, a Swedish education group, doing work around the world, and we were building digital and physical education products in China for kids and teens.
In Chinese for Chinese market?
No, in English for Chinese markets.
In English for, so
yes.
EF Education Language School, English for Chinese market.
That's correct. That's correct. For 3-year-olds and up. So most of our customers were literally 3. There were a lot of 2-year-olds where the parents pushed them in 1 year earlier to get a head start in life.
Yeah, head start in life too.
So that was... And as a new employee there, I got to teach some of those classes. It was a big challenge, maybe the biggest professional challenge I've had, teaching 2-year-olds to speak English. But it was fun. It was good.
I'm
good
trying
days.
to look into that. I'm trying to picture that.
Yeah. I still remember that. It was very fun times, and many things happened. China was opening up the doors, and English was a vehicle and a key to make that happen. So fantastic booming market. And I think we were doing quite well as a player in that market, a leading player. Digitization was going on across the stack, from marketing to production of education, digital learning tools, everything. So came in there and just so much opportunity. And we grew very fast on all fronts across China. I traveled around to 55 cities as part of my remit, my responsibility, and open up new learning centers across China. So cool. Super cool, great company. Enjoyed it, came back, then worked for a Kinnevik company called Clearo, which is a payments company in Stockholm, competing in online e-commerce payments. Right. And I was building that as a COO from early period, 3 years, and then decided to go into investments, into VC. So, data has always been the focus. But
exciting different angles that sort of builds a portfolio of experiences that kind of adds up.
Yeah, I think so. Different fields, different markets. And I think that's also how I look at business today. I think the parallels between industries and businesses and markets, for that sake, create opportunity.
But then somehow Redpine got started. How did that journey start off?
Yeah, Redpine got started. So nearly now, year and a half, almost 2 years ago, my co-founder David Österdahl, former colleague of yours at Spotify, we decided that this is the right time to build a company, to your point. And as a venture capital investor, I saw so many companies coming to us for investments across the AI stack, in application, infrastructure companies, and even some model companies. And I think the common challenge I saw in so many of them was that they were using the same or very similar data. Maybe the UX was different, maybe the team was different, had experience and perspectives. But most of them were deploying a base model from a large lab. And that base model's data set was pretty much the same, scraped internet data from Common Crawl, Find Web, and so forth.
But then at that time for training purposes, right? For training AI models? Or?
Yeah, the big LLMs had been using that data to train their base model, and the base model was used, of course, by the application layer companies. Yep. So as an application layer company, I struggled to find a moat and differentiation between those companies.
That was exactly my question that you stole, because you saw that same different variation for what they're planning to do, but they are relying completely on the underlying LLM. So where's the moat?
Yeah, so people talk about wrapper companies and so forth. I think that's sometimes unfair, but I think it is true in the sense that most of them, when they start, have access to pretty much the same data. Sometimes they have a unique angle there. But anyway, and then the accuracy was often a challenge. What's the accuracy of the prediction model or generative model? And that was also, the data was the answer also to that. Right. So we started thinking about this and digging, and at the same time, big lawsuits were starting to happen and appear in the market between media companies and AI labs, OpenAI versus New York Times, big lawsuit, as we all read about, and many others as well. So we started to see tectonic shifts in this field, with original content and AI labs, copyright, fair use, all these questions that still are a little bit open, and understand that something big is happening here, and we need to...
But it seems like the fair use case is winning in some sense, right? That you are allowed to use copyrighted data in the US for training purposes? Or?
I don't think it's that black-white. I think we saw a big settlement, Anthropic, that settled $1.5 billion for using 500,000 copyrighted books for training. So I think that's good point. Maybe talks in a different direction.
But the whole mode here, I think we've said it in many different ways. But one way we have said it on this pod has also been like, you want to figure out a use case or a business idea where whatever you are doing becomes better and better the better the underlying model is, and not the opposite. That when the underlying model gets good, it eats you.
Yeah, exactly.
So if you can figure that out, then you have a moat that where you become better. That's right. When they mature, exactly. Because they're riding on their investments.
That's right, and I think data is part of the answer to that. Finding those pockets of high quality data. So I think starting from a different angle, AI has, as we know, and you know better than anyone through this pod and your work, so much potential, and has already, explored a lot of that potential. But the most is yet to come within all fields, but including the important fields that we all have. Healthcare is a big one also for us. Education, where I spent a lot of time. There's so much opportunity in building personalized, smarter, more democratized education across the board.
But I feel almost we need to. I think we're going to circle back to it. But I'm going to start with a simple question.
Yes.
If I go to a more traditional enterprise and they think they want to go start doing AI, how many of them do you think they really understand where the gold lies and what the commodity is? Because without naming names, I think you end up thinking that, we need to do AI, and they go all in on that, when in reality it's their data and it's their knowledge that they haven't even started touching to clean up properly. They are missing the point. They're thinking they can do AI and jump to LLM. So this is a very leading question, but do you think people are getting it? What you're saying now is obvious when you set in the VC space, but when we get to normal businesses, that how should we use AI?
Sure,
they haven't really put the laser target on the right problem yet, or the right opportunity. That's my leading question.
What you lead to makes a lot of sense, and of course, from top down, a lot of enterprises as well. I think understand the potential and transformative potential, and also disruptive effect of AI for that industry. Almost look at any industry. And there's a top-down agenda to how AI will change both the company and the productivity, but also the services towards the market for that company.
But the difference is then to understand what is that we truly need to invest in,
Right.
and what is it that we will get for free just by them becoming better commodities.
Yeah. And then the change management, even if all of that is decided to get that through the company, takes time. The bigger the company, the more time it takes. So I think
you got all these kind of insights, and you got an idea for Redpine,
Yeah.
right? And how did you actually get started then, given this idea? What happened?
So David and I, we started looking at this potential. We started lifting some stones, and as an investor, one of the takeaways I had, at least, to validate the problem thoroughly before starting to build in a certain direction, to understand what's the right direction to start. That can change later, but at least to start digging in the right place.
A solid thesis, an investment thesis, or a startup thesis.
Yeah. So we saw this 8-lane highway is massive. No matter what data type you looked at, there's opportunity, right? We can start in almost any field. There's opportunity. So we started talking to our networks, 200, 250 people, I think, during a couple of months. Very intensive validation research work to understand where should we start. And we spoke to supply, i.e. where the data is. Where's their interest in unlocking some of that data for new revenue streams for AI use, and the demand side, which companies are interested in actually licensing or purchasing or acquiring data to have even better AI processes and models and applications. So I think we put all that together and just realized the opportunities are immense. Almost anywhere we start, let's just go full on in this company.
But how did you then narrow the startup thesis?
Yeah.
How did you go to that, and where did you end up in?
At first, we decided to pinpoint AI maturity. I think back to your point about enterprises as a key factor on the demand side. The more mature on the AI
journey,
drive and journey and demand, the better, of course, as a starting
point. They understand what you are trying to figure out. They understand the problem. So, this is what I want.
That's right.
Got it.
And not surprisingly, the large AI labs have the biggest maturity, because they are building the technology, and therefore the appetite for data is and was the highest across fields. So we kind of started there and got in touch with many of the US labs, Asian labs, and also European companies, and started working there and
looking at them as your first innovator clients.
Yeah, design partners, and so forth, and also European.
So you gear towards them. I mean, like, to get started somewhere. To what is it that we're productizing? You listen to what they need.
Yeah, exactly, and understanding what's AI moves so incredibly quickly. So to understand what's happening 3-6 months from now, and then sometimes that wasn't clear, and the road turns very quickly.
How did you approach and find the AI labs? Did you find some contacts to speak to them, or how did you do that?
Yeah, partly through network, through angel investors that we eventually brought on board, through conferences. Again, I think that's a great way for entrepreneurs to actually find companies that maybe fly in for those conferences. So different sources, different pools, sometimes social networks like LinkedIn, tough, but it can work. So I think different sources led us to many of the labs.
But it's a networking exercise from hell, to really triangulate everything.
Especially, I think, Europe is amazing. This ecosystem is on fire now, but it's still a distance to other parts of the world.
You need to triangulate interactions to get through.
And we traveled. I mean, we traveled
travel
intensely for the first years, and still do all the time, to Silicon Valley, to Asia, to Central and Southern Europe. We keep doing that.
Can I ask you which lab was the first that sort of gelled with the ideas and that you started working, engaged with more properly? Which one are the first ones?
A lot of NDAs around what we do, a lot of confidentiality, which
includes who they are.
yeah. So it's a sensitive field because things are moving so extremely fast in this space. But I think the leading companies that we all know, everyone understands the importance of acquiring really good data. When we started, it was more for training models, pre-training, especially mid-training to some degree, but especially pre-training. Then I think as our journey has evolved, the focus on data has also moved on towards post-training, fine-tuning, for example, reinforcement learning, still very, very popular as a field. And of course now, as we talked about before, inference is where Redpine, our company, is focusing most of our effort and energy and the product building as well.
So that's more than the training, both the pre and post training. Now it's more the agent based or inference mode.
That's right. So we're focusing on inference data for agents right now, and this we see will carry us and will carry the market for the next
would you
years.
call that the pivot from your original thesis, or is it more like an evolution that is, oh shit, it's an inference game we want to play?
Yeah, I think the more like an evolution. The mission is still the same, to unlock proprietary data for the value of proprietary data for AI. And how we do that, I think that has evolved. Our thinking about it has evolved in how we provide even more value to demand and supply from data.
So you had a good idea, I think, of the business model at least, and then you need to build a product, I guess, somehow as well. Or was that too simple almost, or did you have? How did you think about the product you need to build?
Yeah, great question. So I think the concept we have is very simple. And great data will power better AI, and then how we deliver that, we have quite a more sophisticated view on how to build that. We, of course, the data itself is valuable, the licensing of that data, and the rights to use that data. And then we're building a data science layer on top of that, which has evolved over the past year. And our founding data scientist, Leonora Westerbacka, she's been here on the pod, I think, as well. So she's building that layer to really make sense of the data. And we sometimes look at companies like when Google won the search engine race 20 years ago now, building a PageRank algorithm, which was smarter and better than Lycos, AltaVista, Excite, and Yahoo, and the other companies that we remember.
But at least old people like us, not everyone else.
Exactly. Not all the listeners, but
Yahoo.
So anyway, I think what they did was quite innovative, right? To say the least. And we think about the same, how to build that data science layer to really retrieve the right data sets. We built a sort of sub-product within our product called Red Mirage, which is also evaluating data. We built another product called Red Anchor, which looks at the retrieval. Are we pulling out the right data sets at the right time? And are those data sets accurate to the ground truth and so forth? So the data science layer is super exciting, super exciting. And then the distribution layer on top of that is an MCP right now. It's an API access point where companies can integrate with Redpine to access proprietary data.
So as long as they have a strong agentic AI compound system approach with good tool use,
that's right.
They simply have that as one part of the tool. You are looking at your product as distribution through tool use, and therefore you're having your main user persona is the AI engineer, so to speak, within the company that sort of figures that needs to sort this out.
Yeah, or the agent itself, from him or her stuff. The agent as a customer is sort of very exciting to think about, right? It's marketing to agents. How do you market to agents? What are they kind of purchasing behavior? And
is it automatic like that? So it more or less finds your proper API and data sets automatically, or is people involved still?
I think it depends on when people listen to this podcast. The answer is yes or no. But right now in January or February 2026, we're getting there fast. If you listen a little bit later, I think the answer would be yes. So.
But now people can choose that they need to have some data, and can you do discovery somehow through your API, or can you just give a concrete example of how a customer would use Redpine?
Yeah, sure. So the first vertical, the first industry we're working with is health. It's a huge sector. It's very accuracy driven, compliance driven, and great impact to improve the healthcare sector from drug discovery to the optimization of healthcare. And so therefore that's a very concrete case. So there's many healthcare agent companies that are well-funded, and I'm very happy to see that.
But still a startup mainly, or is it?
Startups, scale-ups mainly.
Okay.
Scale-ups, so relatively well-funded that need better data or need more data and to be able to do even more things with their agents. So integrating with them, they need data at the point of inference, and we have licensed data from data partners who hold various forms of research data within fields like oncology, immunology, respiratory diseases, and so forth.
So those scale-ups, for example, have some kind of product where they want to help patients or the health organization somehow.
Yeah.
And then
or pharmaceutical companies.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. And then that application that they have some kind of agent integration underneath, and that can speak to Redpine then in some way.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Then potentially can interact back and say, do you want to use this data, or can you just go through a little bit? How does it work in practice then?
Yeah, so it's all MCP driven right now,
Yeah.
and we'll expand that in the future. The agent will then query or prompt our API and say, we're looking for data with this characteristics. This is
Right.
also the context where we are based. I think context is a very hot word right now, but it's also important. So the context and the prompt, we take that, interpret that, and build that into a query into our data stack.
Okay, so you see more the context they're in, and you try to define what data potentially is proper.
Yes.
And then you give a set of suggestions back somehow, or?
It's sort of like that. We make a recommendation, and the purchasing decision is with the agent, so to speak, or the agentic program. Sometimes human in the loop as well. Sometimes it's an autonomous decision by the agent with a budget set that can then procure.
And it's like
the right to
micro
data.
payments, so it's
Yes.
per each transaction, so to speak, a separate payment.
Exactly.
And I think this is so important that to just reflect on what you said. Is it human in the loop here or not? And right now, in the next couple of months, you will see you will set the frame of the budget for the exploratory work of the agent, and then it's not per se a human in the loop exactly. It happens, and that is happening right now. Experimentations and
it is happening right now, and I think from the personal use, separate from Redpine, we start seeing all these use cases with shopping agents, and you give the agent maybe $100 or $500 to buy an outfit that matches your clothes that you like, and so forth. And maybe they get it right, maybe they get it wrong, and if you get it right, maybe increase the budget, travel booking, so forth. And we've also seen examples of when that not going so well, and people booking the wrong tickets and flying everywhere. But anyway, I think that's an evolution. And
but the behavior is in the cards that it's going in this direction.
Totally.
But simply by the sheer size and speed that this unlocks.
It makes a lot of sense, right? It's the purchasing. Whenever we as people buy things, that's kind of annoying. The kind of.
But you can argue it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Or you can argue it makes no sense, depending on how risk averse you're on these topics. But if you look at technology-wise, that we will solve this safely, it will be done.
It will be done. All the big payment companies and finance companies and banks are launching their own payment solutions, agentic payment solutions. ACP from Stripe, and everyone has their own agent payment protocol now to integrate with, to make agent commerce automatically. So that's
even
just a matter of
ChatGPT
time.
has their own instant checkouts.
And you can imagine how strong driving forces this is for the financing companies. I mean, like, I'm thinking about anything that increases ARPU for telcos, anything that increases spend. Of course, they're going to build those protocols and make sure they work.
Totally.
Cool. Okay, so you have a working system right now, I guess, or what's the current state? How would you describe where Redpine are today?
So today, again, timestamping February 2026. We have a working system, which I'm very proud of, and it works well. Working with early customers, early clients, especially healthcare clients, but quite broadly also looking at other sectors where you think this makes sense. It's getting good feedback, getting good appreciation from the market, and we're scaling now as quick as we can in this early but fast-moving field.
Cool. If we move to another topic, I think you mentioned something before that I found interesting, saying something about proprietary data potentially will become like the ultimate moat in some way.
Yeah.
What do you mean with that?
I mean, I think it's still an undiscovered space in a way, proprietary data. And the way we look at it, of course, there's internal company data. That's a massive opportunity in itself for a company, an enterprise, scale up to understand their own data and set that up in ways that make sense so that they can use that data in a good way. That's a great opportunity. We don't focus on that right now. That's not our focus. But instead, the external data, which is offline from the internet, non-public internet data, and just orders of magnitude. So LLMs trained to about 20 to 30 trillion tokens as a kind of pre-training set. And that's a lot of data. That's massive. Outside the public internet, there's up to 100 times more data, which is not public internet data.
Right.
It's almost like we're now on planet Earth only, and there's the entire Milky Way, Vintergatan, a galaxy with inhabitable, place. And the same with data. Like there's so much data out there which is not used for AI, which is great. I mean, great potential. And that's the one we're exploring and digging up and making available for data for AI. So that's why I say proprietary data is the next frontier for so many companies to understand that, there is a different way.
But then speaking about the moat concept, and sometimes, it's interesting to think about, what the big moat for Google or even a startup is sometimes, and how easy it is to copy in some way or form. But I guess the point with proprietary data is that you can't really copy that, because unless you do have access to it, you can't really copy that, right?
Yeah. And proprietary, of course, can have different meanings to different people.
Yeah.
The way we look at proprietary data is non-public data in a broader sense. Proprietary can also mean data that only I have within my domains that no one else can use. That's one sense of proprietary, but we use it in a broader sense.
Okay.
Basically, data which is not public that I have access to. And even if another company somewhere else has that data, it still adds value to my AI. My algorithms are more accurate, my sources are more trustworthy, and so forth. So it still helps me. So that's where we think it's the next layer moat. If that makes sense.
Yes, but I think even internal in some companies, if you have an algorithm that can discover and recommend what data source to use for a specific query, I can imagine that even working internally in companies.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Right.
like, I do the example where I spend a lot of time with companies like Scania, and I think they have a really great moat in their internal data alone.
Yes.
And it's massive, and it's also a very, very untapped potential, because right now it's simply not that easy to make the data move around. They think they have it. Then we come to the next interesting topic here. How much is in the end data, and how much is in the end the whole knowledge layer? I take Scania as a good example. All the engineering data or EP data is very compressed. It's used to data points. But what you really need is how did we arrive at that decision that made that data point make sense at that point in time. And this is also, in my opinion, a completely untapped potential of creating data, which is simply decision traces instead, like knowledge. So we're having a whole plane of data not even created yet in the old companies.
That's
so
right.
all this is moat for me.
Yeah, I agree. There's so much potential. I mean, you have information, you have data, knowledge, the context, the skills, and so forth.
This whole
Many
logic here,
layers.
if you can tap into that and make that encoded and and
that's the potential, right? I think for us, it starts with the data, and then you add the intelligence to make it into knowledge that is more rich in terms of context and the linkages between different fields and different areas within that domain, but also outside that domain.
And for me, it's obvious that if you start with the data you have and you're trying to bootstrap knowledge as far as you can.
Yeah.
But then it's simply how you set up and encode your decision traces that is a never expanding view of data that continues to grow.
I agree. And to build that into reinforcement learning mechanism as well on the tracing and being able to.
This is the point.
But perhaps you can actually speak a bit about Redpine's thinking about the knowledge layer. What do you mean with that at Redpine?
So I think it means a few things. Being able to also be scientific about how strong the knowledge is for the agent to use. That's kind of a problem that we're cracking and have come quite a long way in doing. Not just sharing data, but actually distributing knowledge to the agents to be able to do things. I think it helps sometimes to look at agents like people. People, if we dropped into a new situation, we need to understand the context, first of all. Who are we? Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? Those kind of parameters set the context of the task. Someone's parachuted into a new situation. And that context helps us to understand what data do we need in order to do something, and what's the value of that. And then I think the prior experience of that person or the agent for that sake helps us to decode information and turn it into knowledge. If we take a field like healthcare, there's a rich set of data which is turned into knowledge when we connect it to other forms of data. For example, we take patients' history, for example, and
Okay.
important data, research data for say cancer research, publicized in leading journals and good academic journals. Then you also have the payment history, you have insurance data sets as well, you have guidelines from public institutions. All of those are in some ways different types of data, but connected together, they form a much smarter knowledge layer about how to go about setting up the future of medicine in AI. When there's linkages and good, we talked about before, ontological linkages between those data points, even case law, looking at the legal field, connecting that to medicine, for example. Then you're going broader, but that makes it more knowledge dense.
So drawing the insights to build the information about what really the data says, and then perhaps even the knowledge about how to use it properly. But do you do something specific to do that at Redpine? I mean, even if you have access to the core data, so to speak, it could be a bit difficult to actually build up the knowledge in the end. Or
yeah, it could be difficult.
You showed me, you showed me a bit of the demo before, so I'm trying to hint a bit about that.
Absolutely. So we're breaking down the data, to subcomponents and to almost atomic units of data, which can then be put together into new combinations as well, as it makes sense. So it's not just document here, PDF here. It's really breaking down chunks, breaking down tokens even. The atomic unit of AI data we see as tokens.
But if I understand it right then, because if I look at this from the eyes of a more immature customer or client, I almost sense that if you have a very guided approach where you're pushing them to chunk it and to draw up the ontology around it, you're actually still guiding them into how to think knowledge, even if they haven't got the whole thing sorted when they start. Is that part of sort of how we look at the system should help you not only have data points randomly, but start sorting them ontology?
Absolutely, with proper sources as well, because people need to trust AI to actually make decisions on AI. So exactly like you said, with a knowledge layer or a knowledge graph on top of the actual data that we have, to draw the right linkages between data points and data sets that we have access to create something which didn't exist before, and then draw on the right such tokens and chunks for the agent's use case at the point of inference.
So could you argue? I'm trying to put my words on it. Could you argue that the way you are guiding them, the tool should help them to emerge and building a scheme or a knowledge graph out of what they are starting to chunk up?
Depends on if we talk, supply or demand in our model, at least. On the supply side, I think that's part of what we do different than many other companies. So as a supply company that has amazing data and see the potential of generating new revenue on the data that they already have, in that case, I think it does help to know that we take the data seriously, we turn it into knowledge for agents. On the demand side, definitely it helps to know what we're doing in the data science layer before providing it to agents, before the agents need to use it.
Is that even perhaps one of the top USPs, the unique selling points that Redpine has to not only be a
raw data provider,
but actually to refine the data into knowledge somehow? Or
Absolutely.
What is the main USPs of Redpine?
I think it definitely is. I think the number one, licensing data sets is very important to have access to the right data. That's the fundamental of this, the data itself. And sometimes we look at companies who've done a similar journey before. A Swedish Spotify, fantastic example, your old company, licensing music to be able to stream that to audio listeners and video listeners. So the licensing part of data, number one. Number two, exactly like you said, turning data into knowledge through data science. Number two.
Exactly.
And number three, a very good integration interface through an API. We look at Stripe as a good role model in this regard. Stripe had just a few lines of code to integrate with many companies, where other bank solutions had 6 months of integration timelines, KYC, AML. It's 6 months later, you still haven't integrated, whereas Stripe says, here's your 7 lines of code and off you go. So of course you win the developer community very easily with that kind of solution.
So it becomes, so when you're building your USP, it's several vectors here.
It is. And I think that's, can be or should be common for many AI companies. It's probably not one individual moat. It's tough today, I think, to have one moat.
But yeah,
what could
it
that
looks
be?
like one moat, but then you decompose it into what makes it lovable.
Yeah, I think you need a set of moats that together form your company's unique edge.
I like that.
Couldn't you, I'm just thinking out loud here, but couldn't you actually turn this into a marketplace situation where they have to bid basically on saying, I want to provide my data and sell that to this consumer somehow?
Yeah, I mean, marketplace is a concept that can mean a couple of different things. There's a market dynamic in what we do.
Yeah.
So is it a marketplace? We believe in selling it to or licensing it to more demand side companies.
Yeah.
As opposed to, that's the great thing about data, right? It can be duplicated.
Yes. But you can, if you have two suppliers of health data about patients for cancer treatment or whatever, and then you have to choose, you shouldn't use both perhaps, then you could come to a situation where you have to choose and they can make bids or something on which one to use, or?
The way we see it is quality should lead the way, quality and the context of the exactly what data does the agent need, and then look at those two and say, okay, this is a little bit better. So that's at least, the guiding star for us right now.
Perhaps you could take like a PageRank kind of algorithm situation here where
Actually,
you
you could.
define the quality by the PageRank.
Oh, the fit.
Exactly.
So you could talk quality, you could talk fit.
Exactly. But, there's, you're right in the sense that there's market dynamics, the supply and demand, which is very exciting.
I have a tangent question here.
Sure.
Because when I listen to this now and I look at this, I can't I get a nagging side question in my back of my head when we're talking about in Europe. It's almost jumping to the geopolitical topic. We can park this question. I just want to put it on the table right now. We talk about, we need to have open data spaces. What I hear so far is such a naive conversation around that on raw data, no understanding that we need meaning, hardly even metadata, and then very raw APIs on that.
Yeah.
So for me, I think this is the route European, because this is also building the European moat in a sense. But I think it needs to go in this direction. What do you? I mean, like we can park this, but it's just a tangent here that.
If you want, I can jump in.
Should we do it now? Park it.
Yeah, sure.
It's a good. I think it's a very interesting topic.
I think Europe. First of all, like Europe, America, Asia, and so forth. I personally see myself as a global person, and first and foremost, and then I'm happy when our Swedish ecosystem, European ecosystem thrives. But I see it as a global market, and
but RedPine, you think?
For RedPine and in general, I think if there's a great solution in healthcare education in one market which isn't Europe that we can use here and the people can benefit from that, that's amazing. An open source model from anywhere can sort of increase the competition and make those products better across the world. That's better for everyone. But to your question, I think Europe has an unfair advantage in some way by having the market that we do have, opening up some of its data, and we see that happening. PSD2 was a positive reform in the fintech financial space that allowed for some use of data.
Because we're coming back to what the hell should Europe be good at, you know? And I think now if we are thinking this is the commodity and this is the real moat, then if you flip that whole story, oh my God, how far away, we need to heavily increase our maturity around these topics and put that back into the open spaces. Because to me, it's the wrong people with the wrong knowledge working with these topics right now, because they're not even close to this conversation.
I mean, a lot can be done, but I think there's also positive signs out there. There's this thing called EHDS in the healthcare space, European healthcare data.
They're going in the right direction.
Absolutely. It's already enacted by many member states. I think all of them should enact it. It means healthcare systems need to open up some data for primary and secondary use. Primary is by the patient. You can go to your healthcare provider, get your data. That's almost a given. But the secondary use is, as a healthcare company, you can go to a healthcare system and say, I want to actually analyze this data in a positive sense. I want to build a solution on top of this, anonymize it and give it to me. This is news. Not so many people know about this. It's similar to PSD2, but it's for healthcare. Same in industrial data, which is a massive field for Europe. I mean, look at the European production machinery, European Data Act. That's also a new thing that also
right.
is very important, I think, for
But
your
EU
company.
actually has something called data spaces as well, or open data spaces, right? So they're trying to promote that even for health sector.
So my argument is a little bit like, they are thinking right. Philosophically, they're thinking right.
Yeah,
Practically, they need to be way deeper into how it's done.
right.
I think that's what I'm
I'm thinking the open part is questionable here as well. I mean, if we
interesting.
really should have a data space which works, I mean, we should be able to make some money. Otherwise, who will let their very valuable proprietary data go away for free? But if they actually can start to make money from their own data, that could open up for some serious use and value creation. Right?
So this is a key point. Data spaces, yes. How and what do we mean with open? Open API-wise, open sharing data, but I think this is really interesting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think data is the new gold or oil or whatever kind of resource you want to put there. And of course, Europe as a region should build great companies on top of the data that we have.
I don't know, perhaps you can get some. I'm not saying you should, because EU funding is horrible to work with, but you should be a good candidate, in my view. At least,
In my view, it's the same. I'm like I want to throw you into a couple of conversations. Like, dude, please start talking to Anders and the other guys that knows what they're doing.
Thanks, appreciate that. Love to take those.
Then really cool. I think you mentioned, I'm not sure what they are, but you mentioned some partnership with something called, AsedaSciences. Is that the proper name?
It's it's a client that we are working with. A very exciting company, by the way. They're from Switzerland, but they're also global as a company, building in the biochemical space, including drug discovery and toxicology. And they have many different data sources, and RedPine is helping them with additional data sources through our MCP into their system. So they're doing fantastic work. We just launched that partnership publicly recently. I think it's a good example of the type of clients that we like to work with.
I think that could really explain what RedPine can do.
Yes.
And if you just were to describe briefly what they actually do, it's something about like visualization, right?
Correct. So AsedaSciences, they again aggregated many sources that they have built up, many of them themselves through their wet lab work and their domain expertise in toxicology through many years, and the team there has worked for some of the leading pharmaceutical companies and medical companies. And the visualization is the way that they enhance that data by again bringing it from data to knowledge and make people understand how to make decisions, create new compounds, substances from that work, working with research institutions and pharmaceutical companies as well. So great company, really love them. And we're providing data which they don't have access to create a better mix.
What kind of data can you help them with?
In that case, one of the sources is published clinical studies from various diseases that require proper licensing to be able to be used for AI use inside their system.
Right. Okay. But how do you do that then? Because if they need to have proper licensing in place, have you already written some kind of license agreement with them then that they or?
Yeah, so that's part of how we access the data. We secure the AI rights for the data so that this data can be used in a certain way for AI. It could be for inference, could be for training, fine-tuning, and so forth.
So you get an agreement and you pay for it in advance, or how does it work?
Business model can vary a little bit, and I'm not going to go into exact the details, but I think the key point is that the data owner gets a fair and good and increasing compensation for the use of their data. And that's the key point, and that's part of the unlock of proprietary data that we work with. So the more it's used, the more revenue that comes back to data owners.
I'm hearing some kind of kickback going to RedPine or something, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, we have a platform fee, and that's no secret. So our business model is, the more data that is used by our partners, the more data, the more money and compensation goes back to data partners, and also we retain part of that fee.
One thing I didn't catch with the Aseda case.
Yep.
Are you only working with you and RedPine in the sense when it's proprietary data from the external sides, or when you said you're talking about their own proprietary data from the wet labs and so forth, are they also bringing that in the same way, or is it a demarcation between how you work with internal data, or could you potentially also help them
So they are up and running and have their own existing data and have been building visualization on it. Fantastic product. We're providing external data, which they haven't yet
Okay, so
access
it becomes it becomes the way how they can enrich what they.
That's a good way to put it. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Cool. I'm thinking perhaps one more topic before we go to the news session here, but continuing the EU discussion a bit here. We have a lot of discussions about the legal systems as well, and you can think a lot about back and forth. But we have the new Compass Agreement, etc., that trying to actually deregulate a bit in Europe as well, which could be interesting. What do you think about the European strength, so to speak, when it comes to privacy and regulation and the legislation that we do have? Can it somehow be beneficial, or is it mainly a negative side from a European point of view?
Yeah, I like the angle of the question to see the positives in the legislation. And to give a few examples, I think part of the EU AI Act, which is, I think, put a bit on hold, but it's probably coming in some shape or form later the year. Part of it is, I think, opening up the training of models to understand what's the training set, what's the data that goes into the AI services that millions of people use every day. I think that's very important to make sure there's no misinformation, there's no overly biased information that goes into that data set, to make sure that the citizens get fair and trustworthy information. So I think that's a good type of regulation that actually says, as a lab generating an AI model, what is the training, like the declaration of content inside that model. It also makes it very clear. I've used this data. Is it fairly sourced? Is it fairly acquired? Which I think is also a key component. I think that's very important and very good.
Right. I mean, I think no one really disagrees with the intention of the EU AI Act. Then the question about perhaps the execution or implementation of it, but still the intention is really good, right?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, and then you can argue, where do you draw the line? What's reasonable? What's not reasonable? But I think those kind of things, it makes a lot of sense, right? AI is affecting all of our lives, and it makes sense to have some sort of regulation on it. So I think that's good.
Absolutely. I think very few, I think, would say we shouldn't have any regulation. That would be really, really dangerous, I think.
Yeah.
But let us test one angle we have talked quite a bit about on this pod when we had these conversations, is that...
I know where you're going.
I'm not sure.
I don't know where you're going.
One of the theses has been, I want to test on you, it's actually not the regulation per se or the ideas that are the problem, it's the legal uncertainty or the lack of harmonized standards. So people, engineers, don't really know what it means to be compliant or what is the right view of doing this. Would you agree with that? Because I think even putting this on hold and pause for me is a little bit like, you release regulation, but you also had there was legal uncertainty because you hadn't solved it for the engineers to know what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
What do you think about that sort of?
I would agree that certainty is always better than uncertainty when it comes to legal. So absolutely, and I think now we're in some sort of limbo. I think in the meantime, I mean, builders build and companies keep innovating in the meantime of this limbo, and then hopefully we get some more clarity over time. So I think in some fields like credit decisions and so forth, it is probably a problem because you don't want to invest too much before you know what's going to come out on the other side in terms of regulation. So I think it is probably a problem. I like the signaling from Brussels now about the EU Inc. kind of standardization, harmonization.
This is cool.
It is cool to have one legal form and maybe one IPO standard and quicker time to build a company.
Take away the downsides of being a multifaceted market and making that something...
Exactly. And then I think the upside of it is, of course, the cultural diversity that we have.
So if you look at having the values, but taking away the frictions.
Exactly. I think that's good.
And another angle that we've spoken a lot about when it comes to EU AI Act is, should you regulate the use case or should you regulate the technology? But in this case, perhaps we could add a third angle, which is, should you regulate the data or the use case? So if we take healthcare here as an example, you have data that you do provide. We could choose to say that no data about cancer treatments should be allowed. Then you regulate the data itself. Or you regulate the use case. If you use the cancer data for this, then that should be regulated to do that properly. How do you lie on that kind of scale, what should we really regulate? Should it be the data, the tech, or the use case?
Yeah, I think the privacy protection is important. First of all, the individual's privacy protection is extremely important. We're early in this AI field, and having that privacy protection, I think, is really key. So for us, any data we use is anonymized, and it's not, there's no sensitive GDPR data, so to speak. So I think that's good. No matter if it's about cancer or if it's about other forms of data, legal data or so forth, it should definitely not be privacy sensitive. I think super important. So I wouldn't say that it's just the use case itself, this type of research and that kind of research. I think just having some sort of privacy filtering. Then I think it's probably gone too far in some ways with the privacy. So you have to, it's unreasonable amount of work that needs to be done to clean up like any small signal or indication that could potentially indicate some sort of linkage, even for information that is already public, so to speak. So yeah, I think we can pull it back a few notches, but we still, I think, need to keep some sort of privacy filter on it.
Yes.
That's key. So like GDPR, you know, maybe we can bring it down to 70%, 60% of where we are right now. Would probably be good enough to kind of protect the kind of core privacy aspects.
So be very vigilant with the core, but then understand what is pragmatic.
Yeah, exactly. I think so.
I think so too.
Cool.
It's time for AI News, brought to you by AIAW Podcast.
Cool. So let's do a quick, or hopefully quick, news break in the middle of the podcast, and then we get back to the discussion here with Anders as well. So we tried to discuss a few interesting highlights from the recent week's news, each one of us. Do you have something, Anders, that you'd like to bring up, or should we?
You get started,
Yeah.
and I will add.
Henrik, or should I?
You can start this time.
Well, I think the obvious one this time is, once again, a new model comes up and is released, and it has new amazing functionality and performance. But still, I think it's interesting with the Codex 5.3 that was released from OpenAI. 1 hour after Anthropic Claude Opus 4.6, right?
So we are actually, have we talked about 4.6 even?
No, it's
So
not before.
then there are two news then.
Yeah, but I think these two combined, you know, they were released more or less exactly the same. Of course, from a very strategic, from a marketing point of view, they have exact inside information when each of them will release, and then they do it very, you know.
So my question was for the ones who hasn't been following every single. So we have actually Anthropic and OpenAI releasing versions in an hour.
Yeah. But we've seen in the past, you know, when Google released, you know, OpenAI went out like a day after or something and completely debunked and made the whole news from Google.
But this is almost choreographed.
I mean, it is insider information. They, of course, have detailed information about, you know, whenever they will release something, and they purposely time the releases to hurt the other competitors.
Yeah.
It is a proper like AI race, of course, here. So, but cool. I think both were surprisingly interesting. And if we go a bit through the two models here, you know, we've been saying for a long time that 2025 was the year when OpenAI lost their throne, so to speak, in being the frontier AI lab. And I think they still are. But 5.2 was surprisingly good. And even this Codex 5.3, which is not, I don't think public yet, but they released some results from it, is really cool. So, of course, everything is moving from like standard, like code generation. It's a lot of focus on coding as usual here for these models, but moving from just, you know, normal code generation to, of course, agentic tool use and being able to have this kind of orchestration of agents built into the model itself. So both models is really going that route. So it's very clear path forward. I think for Codex 5.3, they actually used Codex 5.3 to build Codex 5.3, right? So it was truly this kind of, they used their own model to build itself, which is kind of cool. So more so than in the past, but even how they train the model, how to manage the GPU clusters and how to evaluate the results and how to steer the training for that model was done by the model itself or the early versions of it, right? It's
similar to Claude, at least, you know, publicly announced that to build Claude 4.6 and the co-work module as well. Claude built it with human oversight and support, but that's the new norm. And of course, we will never know exactly the percentage that is built by those models, but pretty clear that's a
The
big trend.
trajectory is there.
For sure.
For sure.
And we saw in Davos, Dario said, within 6 to 12 months, it will build all the software.
Yeah.
So whether true or not, but anyway, that's the
But
trajectory.
it's a clear trend for sure.
Very much.
And, it never will be trained as little as it's done today by AI. And in the future, it will be majority trained by itself, right? So it's really cool.
I thought, if I can add.
Yes,
I
please.
thought for the Anthropic launch, the two things that were non-coding were almost the most, eye-catching. The legal module and the financial model. I think that's super interesting because coding has been leading the kind of research for the labs until now, but all of a sudden we're going into new verticals of
and
automation.
Yeah, please go here because I think this is also one some of these like LinkedIn blew up. Like, did you see what happened? The SaaS is dead. And like
40% down.
40% down on the SaaS software, app in those agents, and we now see a trend where you get all the way into a vertical.
Yes,
and that is reshaping the whole SaaS ball game
completely, and for companies, enterprises as well. Everything from how to staff teams and what to invest in, what software to buy. Everything is shifting very, very quickly. And I think the legal module of Claude looks super interesting, right? The plugin they call it, but it's just a start. The financial module as well, bringing Claude into existing software like Excel, even PowerPoint.
And that integration, right, to other kind of finance systems and the same, right? If I understand it correctly.
That one I haven't seen, but at least in the kind of spreadsheet softwares that hundreds of millions of people using every day, a lot of that work can and will be done by AI models and AI agents. So I think that was a big shift.
This is so mind-boggling. Let's take an example. Let's say I was used to tech arena and talked to a head of strategy of a large Swedish company who is sort of in a hyperscaler mode, and they are thinking carefully about how to now, in the same time, get their ERP systems in place or get the stack in place. How to think about this topic now? I mean, because I don't think it's like we can replace the core transactional systems. But you need to be very careful now to modularize everything so you have replaceable components. This is if you're in an ERP shift now, and unfortunately when you go to the enterprise space, it's not the same people that knows this stuff that is working on those types of projects. But right now, how to look at that becomes, I don't even know where to start, how to unpack it.
I mean, SaaS companies, software companies are quickly becoming agent companies. Salesforce is agent force as part of their work. Microsoft is an agent first company. I think they said in one of the announcements. Or like an agent.
It's not AI first, it's agents first.
I mean, I think in general, the SaaS industry is moving from just a seat-based price per month model into agentic pay for use, pay for value kind of model. It must be like that. Instead of having a software suite sitting on the local hard drive, get an agent that solves the task, period, no matter if you have the software or not. That's what you're going to pay for. And I think these launches, back to your news section, is just a precursor of a much bigger shift.
And I think that the classic slogan of, we won't have AI replacing people or companies, but companies and people that use AI will replace the companies that don't.
Yeah.
So if you don't move into this space,
totally.
This is the point, right? Because in the last in the enterprises with the proud analog history, these are fundamentally different teams that are working on what should we have in SAP or those decisions versus who builds the modern data stack.
Exactly.
And this is blurring, and also the whole point with they don't, back to what you're doing, they're not differentiating with this is compressed data in the transactional system. This is not knowledge. You cannot get knowledge from here.
Exactly.
Even if you wanted to, you can't squeeze knowledge out of that.
No.
That it doesn't sit there. Metadata on what the data is, that is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the knowledge traces. And so you need to converge in understanding on these topics now. Otherwise, you will, what is an AI strategy and an IT strategy all of a sudden got blurred.
Totally. It's moving so fast. And I mean, I think the open claw, maybe you talked about that in the previous news session, could be like, that's also massive, right? and how that's just an early indicator of what's to come on the agent side, autonomous agent side.
But another, I think, interesting aspect about Codex 5.3 is it's actually not just for agentic coding or code generation. It's actually for computer use point. And the reason, I've been a bit outspoken about how bad agents are and how bad they are at taking actions.
I agree.
Yeah. Because a use case I've been saying is, an agent can't even make a PowerPoint today.
Yes.
And you can't really replace a human because, every human more or less unfortunately needs to do a PowerPoint at some point.
No, this is a very dysfunctional world if we're defining humanity through PowerPoint.
I
agree. It's a big part of it, a big part of the work for many people.
It should be a simple thing, right?
Yes.
A PowerPoint is not a hard thing to make, but AI is really bad at it.
Yes.
And that's kind of surprising. Now it's actually moving in that space and specifically into the computer use space. So actually, Codex is finally getting some good scores here. So they achieved like 65% accuracy on this kind of OS world benchmark or something like that.
Yeah.
And I think humans are like 72. So it's getting close, almost close to human performance now. And what computer use means is basically using keyboard and mouse, right? So
Sure.
If you don't have like direct API or MCP access to do something, you need to use the human interface, which is computer and mouse, right? And for humans, they of course can do that and build a PowerPoint. But once an AI can do that, then suddenly the possibilities for an agent will significantly improve.
Yeah, because if you use then, so the interesting thing here is that you're getting to these network effects where you simply get to a critical tipping point on one feature, and all of a sudden that unlocks a new level.
Yes.
Which then goes really fast.
Super fast.
Super fast.
I don't people understand. Some people say, well, why should an AI use a human interface? Why shouldn't they have their own? Of course they should have their own, and that will happen in many years. But if we want to quickly unlock value and be able to take a lot of actions, they should use what exists today, and that is the human interface. Just as robots needs to operate in a physical world with the human kind of size. That's why we have humanoids being built everywhere, right? It's for that simple reason.
But how fast will this happen now? Because it's always back to it can be done in the lab. But some of these things, if you take the PowerPoint example, when that kind of works, it's up to me when I do my PowerPoints. So it's not really, it's out of the lab very fast. I
think look at the Google. As a startup, you work a lot in Google and the Google Suite. And I think it's just in the 1 year gone from, as you said, not very nice looking presentations. As a former consultant, high bar on PowerPoints.
I keep these slides on the best.
Still have it as part of your toolkit. But anyway, I think now it's much better. It's still not, I think, to the human level at least, but moving very fast. Trajectory is clear. So, and with the OpenClaw regime of agents, it's just going to much more quickly.
It can flip very quickly here.
For sure.
And that's kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
But I think the point is this: it flips quickly, but then you're going to have the fundamental divide between which boils down between the technology invention, exponentiality, and the very linear adoption capacity curve, or whatever you want. So what happens now? The competitive threat area, the surface area for competitive threats. We're going to go into this innovation pressure tipping point where it can go faster than we think now.
Absolutely.
Cool. Still, if I were to rank the two, it would be fun to hear what you think, Anders and Henrik as well. But if you go to LM Arena and look at who is in the top there, of course Opus is now in the top compared to everything. I think it's even number 1 and number 2 spots. So they have this kind of high thinking mode, and then even the second one, which is not high thinking, is still 4.6 in the top, and then Gemini and then Grok. I think I don't think Codex 5.3 is in there yet because it's not a public.
We don't know the numbers yet, right?
So it's not public really yet. So it could be, but still it's not there. But still, Opus is amazingly good, but it's very expensive. And, there are other purposes or negative points, I would say. But still, for coding purposes, it's hard to beat, I would say, Opus. What do you think?
Yeah, I speak to my developers on the team all the time, and I think Claude is a big favorite still. And also now with the co-work module, it's actually spreading to other parts of the team. Yeah, so I think that's a big shift. It's been developer-centric type of.
With the co-work, people don't perhaps realize it, but it actually has its other app or other way of working, integrating with the desktop. And actually, OpenAI did the same. So I forgot to mention that, but they created something. What was the name of it? Some app that runs only on a Macintosh. So I won't try it because I don't like Apple. But still, they have an app that can basically show how it's thinking, and it can access the desktop. And even it can do like interactive debugging properly. So if you are doing coding, before it couldn't really control like the IDE, it just has to produce code and run some, but it couldn't really do proper debugging. But apparently this can. And I think it opened up so many new avenues of how an agent can take actions when you have these kind of extra applications.
Wasn't that the OpenAI agent, I think they call it? Is that the one you mean? Or? There's a part of OpenAI's ChatGPT suite called just OpenAI Agent or ChatGPT Agent.
No, Codex app is apparently called.
Okay.
It's like a command center for managing multiple agents.
But how are you yourself thinking about this as a startup?
Yeah.
How deeply have you gone in AI enabled coding right now, and or whole operation enabled? Like, because one of the benefits of being a startup is that you don't have the legacy. You can try to think and surf the wave now. So are you doing that, or is it still you need to focus on doing the traditional a startup?
We have to be AI first, and we want to be AI first, and it's a fantastic opportunity to start with a canvas, a blank canvas, on how do we design the teams
exactly
in programming, in computer science and software engineering.
So you setting up teams from this perspective from the beginning, thinking we should be better the better the AI agents get. We shouldn't need to reinvent our process.
Definitely like that. So that's part of our core value, to really be we say AI first, but I think one caveat that we have built in also is to do human thinking first and then AI second, because it's so easy, and I see that all the time, not just in programming but across AI slop, and people just hardly think, just put something in the AI, something comes back, hardly look at it, maybe it's awesome or it's terrible, but I think it's still a value of doing the thinking first. Like, what do we want? Right. How does the prompt look? No matter if it's...
So has this been a sort of almost like a heuristic or design principle? Or have you thought carefully? When we say AI first, we want thinking first and AI first.
Think first, AI second. And I think that goes a long way still. It might flip in 5 years. But right now, I still think we have so much context, intelligence, knowledge to put into this.
But it resonates so well when we talk about which coders gets the most benefit out of the AIs, and it's the best communicators. It's the best. So the leadership skills of communicating, or delegate, be clear on your goal, and which is the thinking. What do I really want before I get the shit out?
That's right.
That is a real important.
I think it is, and no matter if it's about writing or visual development or coding or.
But it says something on the new leadership skills, and it says something about what should we train as humans, for sure.
It really does. I'd love to go deeper after your news section, and we hijacked the news section. But we can go deeper in what it means to be a professional and person in the age of AI. But let's table that for.
Okay, I'll write it down here. Yeah. Before we go there, Goran, do you have anything you want to add, or any news here?
I had 3, but I will make them very short because we don't have much time, and he needs to leave at 7. So.
Oh yeah, right.
So you have the C Dance 2.0, the new video released model, and I think it's fantastic. And then there was a new what is called like a report about AI ethics and governance. Over 200 actually scientists, including Joshua Bengio, who was leading actually the panel, created a new report about the dangers of AI, so which is super cool. There are many things in the past 2 weeks that actually has happened, right? It was also the agents talking to each other.
Yeah.
We missed the bots and etc.
Yeah,
but we can take that in another time and just to enjoy a little bit the RedpineAI story. Yeah. So.
Sounds okay, or do you want to add something?
No, I'm actually quite keen to segue on the angle you went with. I think this is a nice angle, and start zooming out a little bit. What do you think, Anders?
Yeah, no, let's go there. Perhaps you can frame it, Henrik.
No, I give it back. You were doing the framing perfectly. So take you had a train of thought. Take us back to the start of that train of thought.
And I think it's probably something that all of us who are working with or in AI are thinking about. On one hand, there's immense excitement about the opportunities of coding, of writing, of creative development, and so forth. On the other hand, there's that what's going to happen? How is this transforming industries, jobs, professions, our kids' future? That question.
My identity, my strength. What is my strength?
Exactly. What are the jobs of the future? What's going to happen? Job displacement or not? All these questions, I think, are all around us all the time. Seeing, back to your news about these new modules. And I spent some time thinking about this as well. And I can give my humble 2 cents on this topic, which I think I'm an optimist at heart, and I think we have to be. And overall, I'm extremely excited about what AI will do to so many important fields: climate change, health, education, materials, so forth. So that's sort of putting that aside from an. I do think that what it means to be human and the value that we can bring into the professional space, especially, I think it's going to be very important to follow. And I do see. You mentioned before that the best programmers are the ones who communicate and so forth. That's, in a way, a cross-disciplinary skill. You have the communication skills, you have the programming skills, and then you can leverage AI to be better, to be more productive. And I think if you take vertical by vertical, like industry by industry or job by job, I think it's the same. So legal, for example, the best lawyers that I've worked with throughout, many years, and probably the same, are not the ones who know the law, the book of law, the best.
Perfectly, but they could communicate and pedagogically get you into the topic.
Communication, but also strategy and business. They understand, okay, a legal field is also about risk balancing.
Yes.
There's the finance, there's the industry domain expertise. I can pull insight here. I've seen that example from the past. I can pull data into knowledge, and I can use that to give a recommendation, which is different from just citing from the book of law. And I think that's the very best in each profession, have that sort of cross-disciplinary human touch, which is still very difficult. In the future, let's see what happens. But in the next couple of years.
Touch? I mean, I would argue that, I think, of course, communication is if you see someone being really good about communicating about coding or legal or marketing or whatever, that's a very positive sign. For one, that they can communicate. Secondly, they actually need to understand it to be able to communicate it. Yes. You can be the best communicator, but if you don't understand the topic properly, it doesn't matter if you can communicate or not. So if you can say something profound about something complicated, that's a very good sign.
Yeah, that's a good step.
Right? So even Einstein said something famous, like, what was his quote? You don't master a topic until you can teach it or something. And I think it's a lot of sense in that kind of statement, right?
So that's true, but also drawing things from different disciplines and make sense out of it, not from the most obvious angle. Investment, like take investment. I think the best investors are not the obvious investments, because everyone else makes it. The logical ones, everyone will jump on, but the contrarian ones, the ones who see things differently from a different vantage point. And it's not sure that just because you increase the temperature of an LLM, they will do contrarian investments, right? So I think seeing things, I've seen that before in that industry. I take that into this context. I place a bet. I think those are the investors.
Let's really try to put the word on that, because we have the communication skills.
Yeah.
And then you say we need to have communication in relation to a field, so it's actually knowing it to
proper
teach
intelligence to understand it as well.
Yeah, this is step 2. Now you said the third one, and let's really try to put a good naming on that, because sometimes we say, you need to be curious. No. What you're looking into are people who are deliberately seeking out intersectional innovation or meshing things. So it's this fundamental ability to mesh different concepts.
Yes.
So not disruptive innovation, intersectional innovation. So it's something about it's about seeing how these different things pull together. So this is it synthesizing? No, it's taking in and then synthesizing. Taking in different perspectives.
I think so. It's almost like a chemical reaction. You bring in different compounds, and what happens when you mix them? It's something new that has not been foreseen. I think it's the same in creative industries as well. Writing, music creation, art and so forth. It's not the most obvious things, the most naturalistic paintings that are the most sought after, but maybe sometimes the most provoking and so forth.
And
And
what-
I think that's a human element that humans have.
But if you follow that line of thought about taking different things in, it leads to another very different professional skill set where you can see a difference in the divide, who has it or not. And what we are talking about now is the fundamental ability to work well in a cross-disciplinary setting. And to me, it goes back to the fundamental understanding of being T-shaped.
Yeah.
So we are creating a lingo and a joint purpose that are bigger than ourselves, that are bigger than, I'm not, my identity is not my task. It's our purpose. And within that, I'm confident in my discipline. But I also have a language shared with completely other disciplines that makes the team brain index bigger than the one. So that goes together with, we want to then, I meet people who they have a hard time outside of their comfort zone of whatever topic they are. And it's so obvious they've grown up in a division of labor type organization. And when I put them, now we're going to be a product team, the most fundamental problem is that they don't have a shared language. I don't have a shared respect even for the other person's competences.
Yeah, no, good point. Good example. And I do think that's going to be super key. And also to bridge the divide between agents, AI, and people in the future, going back to cross-disciplinary. We have, the agents doing things and the people, and making that all work together requires a new type of communication skills and collaboration skills as well. So, yeah, I think there's...
But we're jumping a bit around in the topics here. One is the...
Sort it. Good idea.
One is the more like cross-disciplinary kind of understanding or innovation that we can have. And then we can argue if that's a human skill or not, or if it's something else. And then we get back to what you originally said, which is the excitement or the concern potentially about, the progress of AI and the impact on human market or job market, etc. But just before we go to the job market, I just want to see, is this a human skill, as you said, or not? So just to try to elaborate a bit more there, I would argue today, you are right, that it is a human skill to be able to find these kind of more abstract kind of connections to see that, actually from health sector, we can actually see that the data science algorithm there works in this use case, and they can find these kind of high level abstraction connections, which is really hard to find. And that's the true tell sign, so to speak, of a very senior and knowledgeable person, right? And I think AI today can't do it. They are extremely good in memorizing. So you can put like 10 blocks, of course, into Gemini or even into Opus now, which have 1 million tokens window as well.
Yes.
Token window. But it can mainly, find data from that in a shallow sense. But it does that insanely better than humans.
That's right.
Right? So just being able to recall from a large piece of data is something that AI is significantly better and actually a very valuable thing to do, because humans are horrible at it, right?
Totally.
But the reasoning ability, I think, today to be able to do this kind of high-level abstraction connections is something that humans do better. So I do give you the point. It is a human ability today, right?
But you're putting a timestamp on it.
Yeah, I mean, that
what
I
you're
agree.
doing
The
now, you're putting a timestamp.
Yes.
Who can predict in 5 years when we sit here? Maybe I'm invited back, maybe not. But at least when you do the AI news in 2031, about human skills at that point, then I think we'll be talking more about robots and dexterity as a human skill. A human unique skill where AI and physical AI are not yet. Maybe at your companies you will have, but to be able to lift up a glass without crushing it, and those things are then I think the big focus.
But if you go back, we had the first pod this year was with Karim at 6. I don't know if you know him or you know.
I don't know him, but I heard the pod. Yeah,
you heard, So
big fan of the pod. And
then ultimately, then we are talking about his view on AGI and reasoning and navigation, and all that, where he basically thinks it's a core pattern, and then what we're doing, we're actually moving in complexity of a fundamental pattern. But if I'm taking that in, that would that sort of be, would that lead to the point where the reasoning and this sort of pulling things together in the end is done better by the AI? Is that what we, if you take that trajectory and towards the AGI view on this, and we, so it's like the knowledge layer, and now we go up in OpenAI's model to reasoning.
Yes.
And when we hit that mark, we're probably not going to be better than AI there either.
No, but I think still the top layers in this pyramid. So we're speaking about this OpenAI pyramid. So they, like 2 years ago or something, published an AGI path. And then we said they had the first layer, which is conversational or knowledge.
Layer, right?
Five. And then had reasoning in level 2, and then autonomous, basically agents in some sense in level 3. And then we had innovation, they call it, and then organizational.
Those two are a little bit more blurry for me. What they mean, the top layers. But
we can go there if we want to. But I think I think it's rather good. It's not a perfect model. It's kind of old. It's many years old.
Yeah, but it allows us to reason about this, and it allows us to distinguish which human capabilities are important.
I agree.
In within the timestamp of where the AI maturity is.
Correct.
But just to go there a bit, I mean, I think it's very clear that, for autonomous level 3, we are, of course, seeing a lot of progress in AI being able to take actions, but it's primarily through APIs and MCP interfaces that we have pre-built as humans for it. If we didn't do this kind of pre-built interfaces, it would not be good at taking actions. Now we are seeing computer use through Codex 5.3. It's starting to approach human skills, but it's not there yet. But it will, of course, improve a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not there yet.
No.
So we will see autonomous layer number 3 improving a lot coming years. But I don't think people realize the big shift that will.
And what my thesis is that this will be completely blurred, because from wherever we are right now, which is sort of the knowledge layer, someone I can't remember who it was from Silicon Valley and said the AI edge is jagged. So what I mean with that is that we're not jumping cleanly up like this. We are spiking up here, and all of a sudden we are spiking on the agentic frameworks, which is so. All of a sudden now, it's going to be a mismatch of progression in the reasoning layer and in the agentic layer. And some of it right now seems like the agentic layer might come before the reasoning layer. I don't know. So, but you see what I mean?
Totally.
So that's why I think it's going to be a really catch-up effect. It's going to be to the point where you have a tipping point where you level up.
I agree. If I can push the envelope a bit on that point that you made, I think the collaboration skill, going back to what can humans do, what can AIs do, and robots in the future. I think collaboration is still, and a caveat by saying still, a human distinguishing piece that I think also make us distinguish in the human race versus animals. Why are we where we are today as a race?
That's actually level 5, the organization.
Yes,
because that's my view a bit about what it means. It's really about organizing together to form like a company, or a country or a society in some way, and that's something that humans actually do very well.
But this was great because now we could compartmentalize the conversation, because the reasoning in terms of seeing, getting signals, this is one dimension of cross-disciplinary, or taking that in. That belongs to the reasoning level, but collaboration most likely then belongs in the organization innovation.
I think it does, but I mean, what we saw 2 weeks ago when OpenClaw, spun up millions of agents in just 48 hours. That started organizing, at least they reportedly. They created a religion, they created companies, they created social media, they created, their own cryptocurrency.
So we're starting to see that, right?
So that to me tells me a couple of things. Like, first of all, that's an organization layer maybe happening before number 4. Second, what if that is really going to have the biggest impact? We've been looking at SOTA scores, state-of-the-art scores on one reasoning model after another. What if the real impact in AGI is to have total organization and community of agents? Look at how people and the human species have evolved. Yes, we invented fire, we invented tool use for agriculture. So the tools were important, but the ability to spread those, created a whole new society.
Think about the capability as a society that we have. No single human could ever create an iPhone.
No.
Or bad example, a Samsung or a Google Pixel or whatever. Anyway, no, but you see your point, Lisa. No single human have the skill that a set of people do. So an organization like a Google or OpenAI or Redpine, that organization will have so much more skills than any single people do.
Exactly.
So that ability to form and collaborate and group together to do something together is actually much bigger than people realize.
I think so. You know, taking that as a corollary to the future and looking at what if, you know, millions of agents can become billions of agents, and they organize and everyone has, you know, good intelligence. Is it, you know, autonomous AGI for each of those agents? Maybe not, but it's still pretty damn good. And that put together as a kind of value layer, you know, can really build meaningful things we don't have.
But we have also talked about this before then, because how do we envision this? Do we envision it as a huge brain central intelligence, or what I would refer to this as a hive mind?
Yeah,
so
exactly.
What we are talking about here is also then, how do we define when we reach AGI and ASI? Well, if I look at the one component of the hive mind, it is on one level.
Yeah.
But when you look at something that is brilliant at organizing itself, the brain index, so to speak, is 1 + 1 becomes 5.
That's right.
Is that what that's the sort of conversation we're having right now?
Yeah, I think it's an open playing
A completely
field, right?
open playing field, but it's an interesting train of thought.
Super interesting, super interesting.
And people think sometimes it's super easy to organize, for example. They can say, oh, well, I can make that agent speak to that one. This communication and collaboration is easy, but it's not.
No.
And if you take the innovation, the level 4 here, there are actually some interesting experiments being done here. They're saying basically, let's remove all the data up to 1905 and then see if an AI or a set of agents can recreate the special theory of relativity that Einstein did. Now that would require significant ability to reason and innovate at a higher level of abstraction that AI ever could do today. So even though it can actually do a lot of great memorization, which is very useful, the reasoning and the innovation and being able to think outside the box here that Einstein did is something that is much harder than people realize.
Yeah.
But it will, of course, come there at some point.
We will. I think in the next 3 years.
3 years.
Interesting.
Very scientific discovery of high level. I think 3 years.
Yeah.
Do you think there will be a tipping point? Or do you have this mindset in terms of this will be vastly different in 3 years?
I think so. I think AGI is a kind of a blurred line. When do we hit it? When do we don't? And different definitions. Is physical AI part of AGI when we can do lab experiments and so forth? Yes or no? But I think in 3 years we will be able to do scientific discoveries, and hopefully we can have a dent in that curve through RedPine's work as well, providing better data to companies that are pushing the boundaries in that field.
But okay, so this is super interesting, because if we look now, we have if we extrapolate on this as an example,
Sure.
Within 3 years, the thesis within 3 years we're going to have massive scientific discoveries.
Yeah.
What are the core things missing, or the core thing, like you're saying, we are here now, in 3 years we're here. What are the key things that happened or that succeeded for that to materialize?
I mean, I decide to dedicate these years to the data layer. So I think that, a lot is to be won by excavating and unlocking the best possible data that already exists, to be able to make that available cross-disciplinary for the benefit of having AI's super skills play at its advantage. And I think asking the right questions is part of that as well. How can we ask the right questions, use the right data to come up with alternatives, iterations, alterations, and test those quicker in the computer, so to speak, and then doing it in reality, like in the labs. So I think data plus questions, and it goes back into combining the best of humans with the best of AI's algorithms and the best of data in the near term, before AI can help jump up a few notches.
Do you have a preferred definition of AGI, by the way? I can share mine to start with.
Yeah,
see if
and
you
then I
agree.
can share mine.
Okay.
But go first.
Okay. So I actually like Sam Altman definition. He changed it a number of times, but still I like the old one, which is basically we will have AGI when AI can do the level of work that an average human coworker can do. And that's, an average human coworker can do a PowerPoint, so it should be able to do that, but it can certainly not do it today. But when that happens, and I actually agree with you, 3 years is actually what I think as well. It's similar to what Ray Kurzweil said.
Yeah, we're back on that number.
2029, so it is actually 3 years from now. So that's what I've been saying also for a long time. But I think it still holds. I think we will see a lot of stuff happening in coming 3 years. Well, what do you think? What's a good definition?
Yeah, I think, one of our team members, Fahad, I spoke to him about this as well. I think when it's similar to Sam Altman's definition, when the computer systems really can resemble the work of humans across the different fields, then I think we're close. Then if you lift in, Demis and a few other people, or I think Andrei Karpathy also talking about the physical aspect of it, the physical AI.
Yes.
Even if the knowledge work piece is similar in 3 years, how good are the robots? I hope they're really good, because I look forward to that paradigm as well. But I do think it's going to take a few more years than 3 to have them as performant and capable as people are today. Maybe 5, but not much more.
But I just want to circle back. So the data aspect will be a key part. In order to reach this, I'm not saying we are at AGI. Were you saying that we're going to get to this major breakthroughs, or like something bigger will happen? Will we need to have had online learning to get there? Do we need online learning as a fundamental step in these 3 years?
Online learning in what sense do you mean?
I mean in the sense that we are not doing batch learning before or training before, but the model continuously recursively learns all the time.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I think recursive aspects of the models are a key feature, which is not yet solved to the ability we need to reach AGI.
If you just elaborate a bit more on that, today we do the pre-training and post-training offline first, and then we use an inference mode. But we could blend these two together potentially at some point.
Yeah.
So it has proper online learning, which is that you all the time update the weights of the model, which we don't. So today we have the parameters being updated once, and then perhaps retrain it half a year later or something.
Exactly.
But then we can take OpenClaw, for example, this kind of cool new open source project built by a single person. He actually stores things online in markdown files inside this container that he's running in. And that way it actually is continuously learning.
Yeah, so
right?
you can solve it technically, architecturally, in different maturity levels.
Yes.
So you don't need to stare yourself blind on the most...
parameters.
On the parameter or the most sharp, hardcore definition.
It's similar
you
to
can
the
look at
human brain.
You can look at it pragmatically.
You can look at the human brain. We know the human brain has a working memory, which is very short, and we can just remember a few seconds or minutes there, a couple of things, but then we have mid-term and long-term memory. And we can think about, of course, the AI system where we have a foundational model, which is long-term memory, and it's very rare that updates. And then we have a working memory, which is the markdown files.
So in this sense then, in its embryonic form, he's solving online learning. He's not trying to solve it on the weights in the core large model. He's just technically solving it as an AI compound system.
That's right. And Redpine, the way we look at inference, the way we think about inference is also data will have a more, fast-moving nature, a real-time type data all the time. So impossible to get that into the training set of big models, even now and in the future. So better to provide a smart infrastructure system to provide it when the agent needs it, short-term memory in your analogy, Anders, to be able to, I need this reference information, I need that. What happened in this last second? I get this data, I pay whatever it's worth. I solve the task next time I get this data. I think that's a more dynamic way for agents to pragmatic, right? As opposed to training the whole world data, like real world data even, and real world models. I think it's a huge trend as well. So
also, if the core question was what are some major stepping stones? I just want to test and provoke by trying to reiterate on Karim. So he thinks the whole context view of orientation, navigation, as he calls it, is a major stepping stone here. That we can call it world model, we can call it learns like a child. What do you think about that aspect? Is that also something that you agree with?
I haven't thought about navigation as deep as he has. I think it makes a lot of sense to train navigation as in the physical world and use data again that exists. I really enjoy how we can use things like computer games, and Demis talks a lot about computer games, right, as a way of training models, but also for robots to use physical first-player shooter games, or even use FIFA games, football games, to train AI models on real football and so forth. So I think that's part of navigation, at least the way I see it, to use the immense data set that exists everywhere and use that to train the next frontier of the models for navigation and for orientation. in context.
Do you think the current type of architecture that we have with the transformers and GPT kind of style models is sufficient, or do you think we need to change that to achieve AGI?
I don't think it's efficient enough, and I mean, I think others can probably answer this better. But the way I see it, it's great for text. It's fantastic for text and predicting next word and so forth. Then when we look at tabular data, numerical data, there are probably other architectural structures that are smarter. Same for, let's see what John LeCun and his lab comes up with, right?
Do we
is
know
that transformer?
what's his? We know his JEPA paper.
Yeah,
so he's pursuing JEPA.
I haven't heard anything more from their new AMI, right? The
AMI labs. Yeah,
what is it? Advanced Intelligent Machines.
Machine intelligence, I think.
So I think they're focusing on, of
AMI,
course,
yes.
on real world models, right? That's the next paradigm, and bringing AI into the physical world as part of the scope as well. And I think that makes sense. And if transformers is the right architecture for that to be decided, can it be modified? Not sure, but there are probably
also,
new ones.
I think it's important to just distinguish here, because I get this question so often. So I just want to say it clear. I mean, transformers can still be a part of it, but if you take any kind of image generated today, it isn't using autoregressive models. It is actually having an autoencoder around the pixels, so the pixels get translated into a compressed space, a latent space, which Yannick was talking about all the time. They call it an energy space, but still in that space, you don't do next token prediction anymore. You do a diffusion model, but it is a transformer diffusion model that is used to generate a new image. So we already moved away from the next token kind of prediction autoregressive models that he hates so much, but it's still using a transformer. Right? So, but as I agree with you, they are extremely inefficient in terms of compute and energy. And I think we will need to, for many reasons, to find more efficient solutions to this.
Yeah.
And I think there are ways to do that.
And I think also for text, I think some diffusion model papers and experiments we've seen look very interesting. So, I think also on the architecture side, let's see in a few years, there might be other ways to combining models, like mixture of models, like mixture of experts to kind of combine into smarter model selectors.
Well, what about this whole argument around neurosymbolic, that we need to sort of combine things and we need to steer some things software and something we can.
But I think it's flipped around here. Before they said they should move symbolic into neural networks in some way. But I think today we're seeing models generating programs.
Yeah.
So instead of moving programs to the AI is generating the program, which is the symbolic and symbolic.
Script on
and in that way, it's become neurosymbolic, but it is by the LLM actually generating code and running it.
I haven't thought about it like that.
So it's flipping around what neurosymbolic meant. Yeah. So in that sense, I think it will. So we know that these kind of models that we have today is not good at certain tasks. It's not good at just doing multiplications, actually, this kind of simple thing. But to write a program about it, that's very easy for it.
Yeah.
So the LLM will reason about how do I solve this in the best way, and then it will come up that I need to generate a program so I can maneuver more correctly in this space, and then the neurons have solved the symbolic.
Yes, exactly. So it's indirect symbolic in some way.
As an interesting mind fuck.
It's like what some Altman also called on-demand software. I think that's an interesting concept. Today we have this kind of weird thing where we build software like for years sometimes, and then we run it, and then we try to use it in that kind of and slowly adapt it. But we can come to a point where software is actually written for a single use case, and then that's thrown away. Right?
Yeah, it's like the fast fashion of software in a way. Like I need this piece of clothing, so I order it, then I wear it, and what happens? It's the same with the software.
Yeah. And logically, it's very simple, because the AI reasons to what is the best way to solve this now. I write a small program.
Yes, I write a small Photoshop and I do it and I throw Photoshop away.
I think back to sort of Claude in your news session, that's in a way Claude in Excel, how it sort of operates. It doesn't write the formulas in the kind of Excel that I've been taught and trained, over years, and shortcuts and so forth. It writes a software piece that sort of operates in the schema, the kind of spreadsheet environment, but it doesn't write the formula. So it creates a piece of software that overlays the software as a service.
Yeah. Anders, I know you have to leave and pick up your kid soon, so I thought we'll try to end this a bit earlier.
Thanks. He's an aspiring football star, so I need to.
So how old is your kid?
12 years old, Alex.
And where does he play?
Playing a soccer team called FC Stockholm.
FC
or
Stockholm.
FC Stockholm Internationale. That's it called. Yeah.
So ending up here, we've been a lot about the excitement, but also the concerns about the future impact AI will have in different ways. And of course, we can think about that in different ways. And one way to think about it is to take the kind of extreme cases here. One extreme case would be the dystopian kind of future where, you know, the Matrix and the Terminator gets right and all the machines is trying to kill all humans. That would be kind of sad. Then the other extreme is the utopian, and you were into that as well and spoke about, you know, imagine what AI can do for climate change or, you know, curing cancer or fixing the energy crisis and so many more things that would be, you know, the big challenges that we have in our society, and AI potentially could help with it. And we start to live in what Elon calls the world of abundance.
Exactly.
Where the cost of goods and services goes to zero, and we don't have to work unless we want to.
Yes.
So these are two extremes, and we probably end up somewhere in between. Or what do you think? Where do you think we will end up here in 5 years? Let's say 5 years.
In 5 years, you know, despite doing this 24/7 and working with this, thinking about it, reading, listening, I do still think in 5 years, our lives would be quite similar still. I
Agreed.
still think so.
Good point.
Yeah. You know, and I think that's, Sam says that all the time as well. Like 3 years ago, we didn't have generative AI in the same way. But, you know, our lives, by and large, you know, we're people with feelings and things and families and emotions and everything. You know, that core component is still the same. And then a lot of exciting model releases happen. So I think in 5 years, hopefully we have solved a few, you know, diseases and cures for those diseases. I would be excited in that way.
Can we agree that we should separate like the technological progress? We could in 5 years truly have AGI, right? Or an AI that can do what most humans can
I think
do.
on the software side, I would agree. Yeah.
But it's a different thing to use it. Well, the adoption is still so bad, right? So adoption is usually linear.
Exactly.
The technological progress is exponential. So even if we have that technology, we haven't really used it to solve cancer. Right?
Because then you get to the deeper definition of AGI. Have we solved it in a lab? Have we solved it even so it's doable at scale?
Exactly.
But how is the uptake? How is the regulation? And when do we have pervasive AGI in society? True. You know, so that's an interesting discussion. Like, I believe in the 2029 that we actually have a AGI, and it's not just in the lab; it's in production. But pervasive is completely different.
Adoption hasn't happened. Right?
No, I mean, like,
think
it can't.
No.
Provoking even more. I think by that time, 2029, I don't think we will talk about AI even. I think, and of course this is speculative, but the same way, who talks about broadband today or cloud? You know, we have cloud, we have broadband, we have, you know, 5, 6G, we have internet, but it's like in the background, it's ambient, it's just part of the infrastructure. And I think AI will, you know, we're getting some funding for a company, I can say that. Part of the investment DD form was fill in which AI systems you use. And it's not like, you can do the obvious ones, but then you go into software as a service that have AI components. So are there systems that don't have any aspect of machine learning or AI? No. And I think in 5 years, AI as a kind of transformative technology will be already ambient everywhere in almost everything we do. So I don't think it's a subject matter as it is right now, but it still will sort of support many things that it doesn't right now. So I'm very optimistic.
So I agree it will happen everywhere. But still imagine if we come to the AGI or even ASI, artificial superintelligence, and we can actually speak to a machine and say, analyze what will happen in the geopolitical situation now. And it can do that with the power of 1 million people. That's still kind of scary. And powerful. So in that sense, ASI could be kind of a scary topic in 5 years as well.
Let's see. I have to come back and revisit the topic in 5 years or 3.
Goran, have we had 5-year anniversary yet?
Oh, we haven't. Yeah.
13th season.
6.5 years.
But we haven't had a celebration.
We haven't had a celebration, so that's why I didn't feel it. So maybe that's the same. Maybe that's the same. So we say in the 10th years, this is, you know, we have less than 50% left to answer the question.
That's true. That's good.
One in June.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Sounds
Good. Looking forward to that.
Is it? It's 6.5. Come on.
It's 13th season. We are just starting 13th season.
Yeah, it was a surprise as well. Time flies when we have fun, and it's certainly been fun, and we learned so much by
Agree.
this, and we
Me
learned so
too.
much from having you here.
My
And-
pleasure, and thanks.
2026.
Was it 20? Was it 21?
20. Yes. Anders
Anyway.
Hammarbäck, it was a true pleasure to have you here. I wish we
Pleasure's
could have
mine.
stayed
Thank you.
here for the after work, but you have to run away and pick up your
Take
kids.
a
so
rain check on that.
Great. I'll come back.
you
for
should.
sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My
Thank you.
pleasure. Great pod. Keep up the good work.
Thank you
Thanks.
so much.
Cheers.